I've called in like
exactly.
I've probably been listening to you since 13. Like you preceded or you came after DA, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
So
it was when he started doing the overnights on like the CBS Sports Radio. That's when I started. Yeah. I mean, I worked here previously on the weekends, but that's when I started working like Monday through Friday. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. So I've been listening for a while. I've called in probably a handful of times, usually like stupid questions. So yeah.
That's fine. Those are the best.
All right. Let me. All right. So here we go. This is episode 64, Dan.
64, my bad. Yep.
Yeah, episode 64.
Nintendo 64.
Oh yes, the Nintendo 64 episode. We got a very special guest. If you're not watching on the video, he's known as the Sports Vulture, the Dark Knight, the Prince of Darkness on 98.5 The SportsHub. It's Adam Jones of the Night Show. How we doing, boss?
We're doing good. Thanks for having me, guys. I'm excited.
Yeah, appreciate you coming on. We will get right into it. I'm just gonna come out and flat out ask you because I've wondered this of all of you guys on 98.5. Aside from whether or not it's good for business, do you like any of the teams?
No, so I grew up a Boston sports fan. I was talking with you guys a little bit before we got going here, but I grew up Patriots, Red Sox, Celtics, Bruins fan. I grew up in Vermont, rooting for all the local teams. So, I mean, I'm a New Englander. I think, sometimes it's good to keep Patriots fans and Bruins fans and Celtics fans and Red Sox fans in check a little bit, right? Like, I mean, I think it's good to to push back on where the fan base can be sometimes. But no, I mean, I grew up legitimately rooting for all those teams. And I mean, if I'm being honest, I think the more you cover teams and the more you're at sporting events. I'm not at sporting events as much anymore as I used to be, but the more you're at that, the more you lose a little bit of the fandom. But no, I mean, for big games, still, I definitely still root for them. I mean, Patriots, Texans, I don't get up for games like that a ton, but some of the bigger games for sure, yeah.
Okay, I wasn't sure because I know I feel like that question has been addressed on some of your peers' show, I know Zoe and Beetle are definitely like Pats fans and fans of the other teams. On Felger and Maz, hard to tell. Hard to tell exactly where they lie. And I know like Felger's line has always been, well, number one, I'm from Wisconsin. And so I know he's a Bruins fan because there wasn't like a hockey team out there. But I think with the other teams, he seems to go with, well, whatever's good for business is what I root for. So if the teams are good, then, you guys have a good amount of shit to talk about. But if not, then.
Yeah. I mean, I think I would largely agree with that. Like, you want teams to at least be relevant. I mean, it's been harder. I would acknowledge this 100 times out of 100 that it's been harder with the Patriots this year. Although, a one-off year like this, first year without Brady, I think the fan base at the beginning of the year certainly was more engaged. But yeah, I mean, having a team that is not competitive like the Red Sox last year or something like that, they're hard to talk about because no one's watching them, no one's paying attention. And we thrive off of that. Like, we thrive off of what people are talking about and what they're paying attention to. Like, that's the goal for us every day. What are people talking about? What do they want to hear about? And if no one's watching the Red Sox or people are starting to tune out the Patriots, then what are we talking about? So I would largely agree with that.
It's interesting because there's really not, I don't know, maybe in like the last 20 years, it's hard to think of a time where all four teams were out of the playoff picture or like not worth talking about. You know what I mean? I mean, luckily lately, there were times when all four of them were in playoff contention, but at least we had something. I mean, we had Brady, then we had the big three, the Red Sox were winning titles, Bruins were winning titles. Very good point. I can't imagine what talk radio is like in like Cleveland before LeBron. It's probably like maybe the best one I can think of outside of college football in Ohio. But
you probably talk a lot of non-sports, or you talk a lot of national sports, or I don't know. I mean,
you talk about everyone else. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, that's got to be
about the Browns' opponents.
I don't know. Yeah. I don't know.
So, Jones, you've been doing the night show for a while now. What do you think is the weirdest or funniest call-in that you've had?
Oh God. Well, so we used to, years ago, myself and Rich Keefe, we used to do a weekly segment every Friday. And really, we turned the whole final hour of our show, we used to call it the 25th hour, on Friday nights from 10 to 11 or 11 to midnight. And we had a couple of segments. One was the Area 98.5 segment, which is all aliens.
Yep, I love that.
And another was, and we didn't have it for a long time before Rich left, but we did a segment called You're Done, Son, which was just, you could call in on whatever you wanted, and then we'd ultimately, like pull a buzzer on you and give you the hook, like Gong Show style. But I think the weirdest one we ever got was from Ryan Weymouth, who is a legendary caller. He doesn't call a ton anymore, but rarely he'll still call. And he called in one night. He's like, "Hey, I got a take on the Patriots offensive line or something like that." But he was like, "But first, I just want to go off topic a little bit." I'm like, "All right, sure, whatever." And he started talking about this guy Phil Schneider, who got in a firefight with a bunch of tall gray aliens in Dulce, New Mexico, and it was completely out of nowhere and very much Ryan Weymouth, and it was great. And that's probably the weirdest call we got, but it turned into like a whole alien thing that we did. It turned into a whole. We still do alien talk all the time. The genesis of it was right.
I was going to say, I still remember that call. You guys must know
you
that,
heard that call? Yeah.
Yeah. I remember, I know you still do it in a different iteration, but I remember all the Kiefer Madness bits were insane.
Yep.
Specifically, the woman.
Yeah,
who,
we did. So we did a lot of crazy stories. Yeah.
Yeah, the woman who not blew herself up, but was basically on the toilet when she had that explosion. That was probably the funniest one I can remember. It was so good.
Yeah, we still do. The crazy story. A lot of talk radio shows do kind of the crazy stories, but I like one thing that I think Rich was great at. I think Christian's really good at is finding stories before they get big. And like that's the thing. It's like, if you're just kind of scrolling Barstool, and I love Barstool, but if you're kind of just scrolling Barstool and you're talking about a story that they've already talked about and given their spin on, like, I think sometimes a lot of other people are going to see it, a lot of other people are going to talk about it, and some of the uniqueness is gone. Like, I think being able to find kind of stories that might get big and blow up in a couple of days, or maybe just stories that you think people are overlooking, like that's the challenge for segments like that, because there's lots of weird news. There's tons of stories like that. It's good to kind of find stuff that, sometimes you just can't ignore like a big story, but it's good to find some of those things that are a little less picked over, and you can kind of give like your spin on it first before it's like a big crazy news story.
Well, that made me think. I have a question. So you run one of the later evening shows. Do you ever find it like, typically when you run a show, you basically run it based off the news of yesterday. So do you ever find yourself like going in today with, this was going to come out hot. I got these jokes, I got this and that. And then do you ever find yourself like paying attention to the shows before you, just to make sure you're not like A, repeating the same thing everyone else is talking about, or B, like trying to find what the hell can I do different after 8 hours of radio from 6 a.m. to, or 12 hours of radio rather.
100%. And like, and there's a balance to that. Cause like, you don't want to ignore the big story of the day, right? So you need to hit on something big, cause like if you're going down, you're like, well, no one's talked about this. And now you're on like your D-level story, or like, your fourth best story or topic, and you're ignoring what other people are interested in. And again, like what we care about is what are people interested in, and we can do our best to try to make them interested in something else. But what are people talking about? What are they interested in? And there's just a balance between no one's talked about it, but also like putting your own spin on something that maybe somebody is talking about all day. So like, we talked, for instance, on Tuesday, we talk a lot about, the Tom Brady Monday Night Football game. We'll talk about Zach Lowe had some audio about that I hadn't heard other people play. Perhaps they did, about what the Celtics were willing to pay Gordon Hayward, and how maybe they weren't super sold on Miles Turner as an option. So like that kind of stuff is good for us. And sometimes news breaks for us, and we can just react first. Like we run on draft night, we can do our own spin on draft night because no one's had a chance to react. So a lot of times with games, especially the Celtics and Bruins, we're on, and we can be the first, which is good.
Very good point. That is a good point. So do you find yourself, is that even, I don't know if you would say it's like worked into your plan, but obviously 6 a.m. show is not going to have anything to do with the 7 o'clock Celtics game that's going on that day. So do you kind of put together your ideas of what you want to hit on? And then do you plan on, hey, there's a good chance we can chunk out some time to address what's happening in the Celtics game or the Sox game or the Bruins game or whatever, and stuff like that too?
Well, remember, so we have the Celtics and Bruins game on our station. So a lot of times I'm
point.
sitting there during.
Yeah. Bad example.
But but like that'll happen with like Monday night or Thursday night football or like a Red Sox game. We don't carry those.
Right.
We'll watch them as the game's going. And like,
yeah.
if Brady's playing, I'm for sure like we're going to set aside some time. I may not know exactly where, but if Brady's playing, we're going to react to Brady in Tampa and what's going on. With a Red Sox game, it might be more organic than that. It's hard to predict what's going to happen in a Red Sox game because there's so many of them. But we definitely plan on that. And like, there's been times where I'm like, ooh, I found this piece of audio or this story, and I bet no one's going to talk about it. And then I hear one of the other shows talking about it, and I'm like, fuck, like I wish they didn't. I wish we were the first ones. So that's definitely happened to me before. Or I've heard people have kind of a similar take, and I'm like, okay, well, maybe I won't focus as much on that. I'll try to focus on this. It's a little different. It's like, we don't want people to be listening to the same thing, 24 hours straight. I mean, we'll talk about a lot of the same topics, but I think our shows do a pretty good job of maybe talking about them a little differently, even if it's the same.
I think so too. Yeah, I agree.
The same main story,
Yeah.
Who's the first person to coin you with the sports vulture and kind of knight you as the nighttime negativity?
I think, well, those are two different things, I think, but the sports vulture, and you can ask him because he'll tell you. The first person to call me that, I believe, was Mike and Woburn. I believe he takes lots of credit for it. And he's if you don't know, he's a very famous caller to the Pilgrim Mad show.
Yeah.
And I think he referred to me on their show as the sports vulture. I don't remember why or how it came up. And they liked it. They thought it was funny. And so he came up with it. He gets all the credit in the world for coming up with it. I think they kind of popularized it. I think they came up with the Dark Knight. I think that was them. Maz is good with all these nicknames. Like Maz came up with Beetle. Like Maz came up with Sarge. I think like Maz has come up with a lot of nicknames. So they're a show that they have a lot of a big following, and that comes with a lot of I don't know if power is the right word, but like they can kind of shape some narratives with nicknames and stuff like that. And they've just kind of stuck. And I think they're both funny. Like I have no problem with them, but I think they both kind of were originated on that show. One with a caller, and one was, I think, their own, if I remember.
What happens when with with the general tone of your show, which we know what the tone of your show is? What happens with you being peers and like coworkers of Zoe and Max? Like if you happen to see them, I know you wouldn't necessarily see like Max in the hallway or something, but when you do see them, is it always like, fuck, here comes this guy to give his negative take?
No, I mean, I think we all like generally get along pretty well here. Like, I did a show with Zoe, like Zoe and Hardy when Beetle was out one day a couple of weeks ago. We had Max on the show the other night on draft night. So, I think generally everybody kind of understands, like, sports takes are just sports takes. That's all they are. Their opinions and, jokes mostly. Like, I genuinely think most of my opinions are, they're rooted in an opinion, but they kind of just wind up turning into jokes. And I think most people by now kind of know that. Like maybe early on, that was maybe more of a question with coworkers or whatever. But I think now people kind of get it. And I've been here. It'll like starting in January, it'll be 8 years for the night show, and then I was gone for a couple of years in between. But I was at the start of the station for like the first 2 years. So I've known everybody here for 10, 11 years, like even guys who didn't start here right away, like Big Jim, like I've known them for a long time,
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you say that because we talk about this all the time. And like, there's people on, Twitter or wherever you interact with people who I think with Patriots fans, especially, it's very easy to confuse or I guess like mix together being a fan and like being delirious, because it's like, especially with this roster for the first time in maybe 20 years, maybe take out like the Ravens game. It sounds so stupid, but take out the Jets game. And it's like looking at this roster, I don't see how you can realistically say wow, like we got a shot. Like we're going to ride Jacoby Myers and Gunnar Olszewski and whoever the hell is playing quarterback to 12-4, 13, whatever the predictions were preseason. And again, it's like I've said, like I've tweeted, I've talked about people. It's like this roster stinks. Like this offense is not very good. I'm still a diehard Patriots fan. I hope they go 16-0 and win the Super Bowl. But I'm not. I wouldn't take myself as a serious person if I was saying, we're going to go to Kansas City on 12 hours flight and we're going to win with Brian Hoyer and we're good.
Yeah, I mean,
and you say the opposite. You hear, get off the bandwagon. We don't want you back when we're back to normal. It's like, okay, but you realize you sound like a lunatic, like when you look at this team on paper. Because if you put this roster in a Browns uniform, in a Bengals uniform, they would just be the Browns and the Bengals.
It'd be one of the worst in the league.
So I think it's good to have someone, especially on air, who's listening to a lot of people. It's okay to be realistic. Like you said, you're a New England sports fan, but you're also not an idiot. So you know what I mean? So it must be
that's debatable.
Fair.
But
yeah, okay.
I mean, I was wrong about the team though. Like I thought they could win the division this year. Like I thought they had enough.
Yeah.
I thought Cam would be better. I thought Bill would have a better year. Like Bill's had a terrible year coaching. I thought Cam would be better. I thought they could run the football. I thought their defense would be better. I mean, I knew they had some issues with like weapons in the passing game, wide receivers and tight ends, but I thought they could get by, and I was wrong about that. So I mean, once they got to once they started losing to Denver, and they had that horrible performance against the Niners, I'm like, okay, I'm not fighting anymore. Like I fought it for the first month. They were 2-2. They were close with Seattle and Kansas City. I'm like, okay, they're not great, but they're a playoff team. And then you start losing to Denver and San Francisco and teams like that, and it's like, okay, they're not making the playoffs. So I mean, originally I was wrong, but at a certain point, you just got to acknowledge what's in front of you. And that's what I feel.
Yes, yes, I think it's okay to change your opinion based off current events that are happening in real life. And for some reason, I've been told multiple times to not so politely get my ass off the bandwagon, and I wasn't welcome back on in 5 years when apparently we're going to be back to perennial Super Bowl contenders. But I don't know. Color me crazy.
Yeah.
I know you feel the same way.
Fans like that are tough to deal with, because
certainly. Yeah.
I mean, you can't talk to them. You can't reason with them. It's like, we've been talking to Celtics fans since the Hayward signing in Charlotte. And it's like, the Celtics are better off with Tristan Thompson. And it's like, we were just talking to you about Hayward and how overrated he was. And now he's gone, and now you don't like him anymore. And now Tristan Thompson's better than Hayward or Miles Turner. And so, it's just people like that can't be talked to. They're insane.
No, if you break down the numbers, it's actually a really good deal for the Celtics.
Right.
They hit a home run with this one.
That's
addition by subtraction.
They're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, fans can be fans. That's their right, obviously. But that's all they are. They're fans, and that's it. They're just not going to question anything. That's fine. You can do that. But that's not very fun to have a discussion about. Well, sometimes it is. I take that back. It's fun to argue with those people sometimes. But largely you're not going to make much progress.
There you go. Correct.
I was gonna say, I feel like they probably give you and your co-host Christian Arcand a good amount of I assume since there's no cameras on you guys, you're probably sitting there laughing at some of the stupidity that gets called into the station. You could say it lightly, but I'm confident in saying that.
Yeah, no, I think we don't even hide it all that well. I mean, if
that's true.
I like to if people deserve to be mocked, I'll mock them. They didn't have to. It's not their right to call in. They didn't have to call in. They made the decision to call in. So I have no problem mocking people.
I think that's fair.
Yeah, I think your joke. The Celtics are 0-1 when, and then fill in the blank. I think that's the one that really. I think that one gets under people's skin pretty quick. Not mine. This skin is untainted, but
Yeah. No, I don't really even know how that started. Again, we're sitting here during games all the time, and we're kind of talking about the game and reading social media while it's happening. We're very much in the echo chamber of Celtics Twitter, Bruins Twitter. So a lot of times I'll overgeneralize the fan base based on a few people on Twitter, but that started somehow. I don't really even remember how that started. And I'm a fan of I'll beat a joke right into the ground. I have no problem beating a joke into the ground. So I've been doing that for literally years, and I don't see it stopping anytime soon.
But I was going to ask you, Jones, am I missing something, or Did the Pats just like forget that James White exists?
Well, they used him a little bit in the Houston game, I think, out of necessity.
They did, a little bit.
Game script and Burkhead's injury. But no, I mean, I don't. I got to be honest. I don't know what's going on with him this year. And I mean, I do. I mean, we know what went on with the passing of his father. We know what's going on with the health of his mother to a degree. I don't think we know all the details, but so I mean, I think there's like a real life component that may be holding him back a little bit. But I think he's there. He's active. So I really don't get why they don't use him. He's been one of their better playmakers now for years, and I think he's been underutilized. So I think that's a failure of the coaching staff, unless there's something we're not seeing with James White, where they just don't think he can be the same guy on Sundays. But every time he touches the ball, he looks like the same James White to me. Like he looked fine against Houston.
Yeah, that's a good point about.
He ripped off a couple big plays, and like I feel like it even goes back to last year, and it's so hard to separate anything from like the good Patriots from the Patriots of last season and this season, because I feel like it's an extension where I didn't even think that they used him. I feel like if I had to look into his usage rate, it would have been kind of low last year too.
I don't know. I got to be honest. I don't know. I felt like last year and the last handful of years he's been used pretty consistently. I thought, for a long time it was if you're behind in the game or it's an obvious passing down, James White's in the game. And this year, that's not the case. Like now it's like before the Burkhead injury, it's like Sony Michel or Damian Harris on first down. Yeah. It's a lot of Burkhead on second down. And then it was maybe some James White on third down and still a lot of Burkhead on third down before the injury. So I don't know. I thought that's been weird all year too. And I don't quite know how to put my finger on it. Maybe it's, I mean, look, I would imagine if I had to guess, there's something going on where he just can't, I don't know. He's not as present during the week as he has been in the past, which would be understandable. And that's got to be my guess. Either that or he's just not meshing with Cam, and the way that they're running the offense with Cam. But I feel like when they use him, he looks like his normal self. So I don't quite know what that is.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think I heard this is obviously on, a much lesser version, but I've heard a lot of people too about how Cam likes having a safety net type of pass catching receiver, like a Christian McCaffrey. And it's like, well, James White is that equivalent. Well, maybe not equivalent, but he's the closest thing on the Patriots. I actually expected a lot. I thought we would see a lot from them this year. But to your point, the thing with his parents, that was week 2, right? So that was like right off the bat. So that has been a season-long thing. To your point, totally understandable. The actual question I wanted to ask you mentioned earlier, you thought it might be a coaching thing. I think a narrative we've heard pretty much all year, depending on who you ask, what show you listen to, whatever the Patriots record is, just going 5-5, 4-6, if they happen to be above 500. Some people are saying, okay, if they make the playoffs, if they do this is without a shadow of a doubt the best coaching Bill Belichick's done or his staff's ever done. Do you think they've been well coached this year, or do you think they've been not so well coached?
No.
Yeah, I think I would agree with you.
They were well coached. They were well coached in the Ravens game. Like I think that was a good game for Bill.
Yeah.
Like maybe the Seattle game, which they lost. Maybe the Kansas City game. Maybe, but like. I don't know. I mean, maybe even week 1 against Miami, I'd give them 2 because, the offense was completely different and looked different with Cam. Like, maybe I'd give them that. But, like, there have been some horrendously coached games. Like, the Raiders game was a sneaky, horrible coaching job in that game. They had to call a million timeouts because they couldn't get lined up straight. Even though they won that game going away, they started poorly, which I think is always a reflection of coaching. How do you start a game? Are you ready to go or are you not ready to go? And, again, they had to use, I think, 4 timeouts in that game just to get lined up properly. Yeah, the Denver game they weren't ready for. The Niners game they weren't ready for. The Bills game I didn't think was well coached. Bill with his onside kick in that game. So, no, I don't think it's been a good coaching job at all. I don't even think it's been a good coaching. I think it's been a bad coaching job from Bill this year. And I think it's been a bad year overall. He put together the talent, and he coached the games. And no, I don't think. I mean, if somehow they snuck into the playoffs, maybe I would turn around and give him credit. He must be doing something right if they end up winning 9 or 10 games. But right now they have 4 wins, and I'm not seeing what he's done right.
So where do you see them finishing the year? You think playoffs is obviously 0% chance, totally done?
I think they are done. Yes. So I don't know, 6, 7 wins. Like they honestly, should beat the Jets.
Oh yeah, forgot about the Jets. Okay, so that's at least one. But yeah, it's like people are, last week it was okay. We technically can go 11-5. Now I guess technically they can go 10-6. I don't see 3 standout wins on their schedule. Do you? Maybe the Jets. Arizona is not an easy win.
The Texans would have been the 2 that I counted. I would have said
Right.
Jets and Houston. Those are 2
Yeah,
automatic.
good point.
And,
0 for 1 so far. Yeah.
Right. So, I don't know. I mean, maybe they could win 8 games, but whatever. They're not making the playoffs.
That's not playoffs. Yeah. Right. So The reason I ask is actually, it's funny. We were speaking with Rich Keefe a couple weeks. It was after the Jets game. And I think the first question was, was that a must-lose game for the Patriots in the day?
I didn't realize Keefe came on too. Oh, nice.
Oh, yeah. He was on whenever the Jets game was a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Because at that point, going back to fandom, it's at that point, I think if we lost to the Jets, that'd make them 2-5, 2-6, something like that.
If we had lost that game,
correct. Okay.
Yeah.
At that point, I was okay with getting on board of not a tank, but it might be fun for a year to see how much we can lose and maybe get Justin Fields or something like that. That might be kind of fun. And then they fucking beat the Jets, and it's okay, now what do I do? Because I know they're going to lose to the Ravens, and then they beat the Ravens.
You're in limbo. Yeah.
And then, assuming we're going to beat the Texans, all right, we're 500. We can do maybe 10-6, 9-7, and they lose to the Texans. So I have no idea. I don't know where this train's going. And quite frankly, I don't like it. I don't know what's happening this year. I think is 8-8 worst case scenario? They're just going to get a middle of the line draft pick and be right where they are next year. Same place.
I think that's probably the worst case scenario for where you can finish. You were decent, but you didn't make the playoffs. You
Correct.
were not good enough to get a high piece of draft capital. So I think that would be worst case scenario.
Awesome.
I don't think you keep all that much of your culture going 8-8. I've heard a lot of discussion about keeping your culture and not losing your soul by going 8-8. I don't buy any of that. I don't think their culture's all that great. They had Stephon Gilmore on a borderline holdout right now. So I don't think their culture is all that great.
Mm-hmm.
I think I would rather take the draft pick, and then that's an easier thing to start with next year.
I think the holdout says a lot too. Maybe not about culture, but I think there's something. Granted, I have no idea what, but I think there's something to having the most opt-out player. I shouldn't say holdout, opt-outs. The most opt-out players, in the league. Yeah,
I don't know how many guys wanted to be here this year, and whether that's a Bill thing or a lack of Brady thing or an actual, not wanting to show up in the work environment that I know a lot of players opted out of. I don't know. Maybe it's some combination thereof. Maybe without Brady, it was easier to opt out. Maybe that sort of thing. They go kind of hand in hand. So, look, I think they lost some good players, but I don't think if Hightower or Cannon or Patrick Chung were here, they're much different. Maybe I'd give
good point.
An extra win, maybe at most.
Yeah.
Jones, I think it's just tough because I went to my fortune teller recently, and she was telling me that N'Keal Harry still has yet to have his breakout season, and she said games 12 through 16, watch out. So who knows? Like, we could be going on a playoff run.
It's coming.
Look, if N'Keal Harry wants to wake up, I'm all for it. I like that pick legitimately more than anybody not named Bill Belichick. And me and Bill were wrong. Me and Bill were wrong on that one because that has not worked out at all.
I would tend to agree.
It's been tough to watch, and it's like where would you have to in the whole Bill versus Tom narrative right now? The Bucks are what, 7-4, 8-4?
Yep, 7-4.
Yeah. Okay. So let's say that whatever that trending record keeps up and they make it to, I don't know, NFC Championship. How far? It's far-fetched, but how far would the Patriots have to get this year for you to call it a win in Bill's column in the Bill versus Tom debate? Super Bowl?
Win? Yeah, maybe. Yeah. He's at least got to go as far. I take that back. He's at least got to if Brady's going to make the playoffs, he at least has to make the playoffs. And then you can rationalize it and say, I don't know, maybe Tom got the NFC East winner in the first round, and then they got something broke their way in the next round, and now they're in the NFC. Maybe you could justify it that way. If Tom makes the playoffs, Bill at least has to make the playoffs for it to be a draw. And I don't think that's happening. So, if Tom goes 1 and done and Bill goes 8-8, I mean, that'll be close. I'd still give Tom the check mark, but that'll be closer than I expect it to be. So that's probably about the best he can hope for, is that it's not a bloodbath at this point. Because, 11 weeks into the year, it's been a bloodbath in favor of Tom Brady.
Well, I was thinking like if Tom made the Super Bowl and lost, would Bill getting to the playoffs, would you consider that a draw? Because of like clearly the weapons are much better on the Bucs than they are on the Pats.
Right, but Bill puts the roster together, so like I don't think Bill is like exempt from it. It's like, oh, the weapons suck. Well, right, that's on Bill. He picked them. Bill, that's
Yes, they do.
So, like, I mean, I can separate Bill the coach a little bit from Bill the GM if we wanted to break it down, but it's kind of all encompassing with him. Like he has a say in everything, which is part of his greatness. But when it fails like it's failing, then he gets a lot of the blame. And fair or not, I think that's the way it goes.
That's true, because I guess when you put it that way, yeah, all things being equal, like Belichick being the coach and the GM makes all other things equal. It's apples to apples at that point.
Yeah, look, I mean, Tom's the pseudo GM down there in Tampa, and like I would blame Tom for the Antonio Brown mess right now. I don't blame Jason Light and Bruce Arians. Tom's the one who wanted him. He's living at Tom's house, for God's sakes, or his pool house or whatever. And they're forcing him the ball. I think it was 13 targets in the game on Monday night. They're 1-2 since he's gotten there. Thinking man emoji. Like, I mean, that's Tom's fault. So like, I'll blame Tom for that, just like I'll blame Bill for the roster that they built.
I have a question, a follow up on the Antonio Brown thing. So I forgot that he was living with Tom still. Do you think he farts on Alex Guerrero the way that he does on all other doctors?
Yes. Yeah, I would imagine, once you fart on one doctor, you're farting on them all. It's kind of a precedent that you set. So I'd imagine, plus Guerrero's not even a real doctor. So if you're going to fart on real doctors, you probably fart on fake doctors, I would imagine.
Yes.
Oh God. It's probably worse with Guerrero.
Yeah.
More casual,
now that you mention it, it's probably worse. Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's part of like his ongoing like medical records, like when you pass them from like doctor to doctor. This guy, he's in phenomenal shape. He tends to fart on his doctors. But great athlete.
Diet could use a little bit of work. Yeah.
Sure.
How does a person like that get referred to another doctor with such a bad?
I wouldn't refer him.
Bad record.
I don't think he does. I think you start from scratch. I think you go out of network, I think, is what you do.
Yeah. A lot of WebMD and a lot of out-of-network referrals. Yeah. That's the Tampa way.
Yeah. A lot of minute clinics, stuff like that.
Yep.
I think you're rolling
in and
a
out
little bit at that point.
Yep. No paper trail. Just give me the clearance and I'm good.
But he's probably got to be like the biggest visitor to an urgent care. Like I assume he keeps most urgent care places in business because he can't see regular doctors.
Yeah, I would assume that's where he gets a lot of the work done. Yeah, because he's not getting referrals. No one wants to see. No one's, if the medical charts are going to follow around like they did on Seinfeld with Elaine Dennis, if they're gonna do something so innocuous like they did to Elaine, then I can't imagine Antonio Brown getting referrals. Yeah.
I can also see a hospital like using him as like a test for like the interns or like the new doctors. It's like, all right, like. We all went through it. We all gave Antonio Brown his annual physical.
Get the interns in here. The part thing. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
But I'm not a licensed medical professional. I don't know. I can only guess. Do you think Tom Brady's had a good year? If someone just asked you straight up, do you think he's playing well? Below, above expectations? What do you think?
Define good.
Right. Do you think he's
good? I think he's been
like
I think he's been good. I agree. I kind of say that almost like an insult. Like hey, he's been good. But he hasn't been great. He hasn't been anything special. And he's been what he was last year with the Patriots, I think. He's the same quarterback. And he's got better weapons, so maybe he's taken another half step back and the weapons hide that a little bit. But, I mean, I think this is what Brady's been for the last 2 or 3 years. He can't throw downfield.
No.
And that makes sense. He's 43. Like, you're going to lose arm strength.
That's a good point.
Not going to lose arm strength is insane. So, yeah, I mean, I think this is kind of what he's been. He's good. He's, probably somewhere 8 to 12 in the NFL in terms of quarterbacks. He's somewhere in that soft middle. He's not elite. He's not anything close to elite anymore. He's good. You can do worse. The Patriots are doing worse right now. Cam Newton's worse. Jimmy Garoppolo's way worse. Like, there are worse quarterbacks for sure, but, he has not – he's probably a little below my expectations, but it's about what I thought. I thought Tampa would be 10, 11 wins. I thought they maybe went around and be done. I thought Brady would be – statistically good, but kind of look as he has. And I didn't expect all the bad interceptions like last night or Monday night.
Brutal.
I didn't expect, him not to be able to count to 4. Like I didn't expect that. Like that Bears game earlier this year.
I always assumed he just knew that. That's a very good point. I
thought he could count to 4. I thought that most football players should be able to do that.
Yeah.
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 Maybe no one brought that up in this year's preseason interviews.
Maybe. I'm curious if you could pull his Wonderlic scores, if that is a correlation at all to the down and distance.
I think we now know the magic of Bill Belichick, the coach, right? They work probably on their times tables, their multiplication tables.
Yes.
Simple math, and I don't think Bruce Arians is doing that.
Good coaching.
I think you see that on the field. Yeah.
Speaking of Bruce Arians, talk about man, this is such a good sports word. I feel like they have a mercurial relationship between Brady and Arians. Like every time they have a good game, it's everything's whatever, sunflowers or sunshine and roses. Anytime they have a bad game, Bruce Arians is like, well, we didn't see these coverages. We got to make better throws.
Yeah.
It's
Tom sucks.
Oh, so you mean Brady?
Yeah. I don't quite know what's going on there, to be honest. Like,
I don't think he's a very good coach.
He might have been at one point. I look at him now, and this is something we've been talking about this week on the show. Like, I look at Bruce Arians and I go, maybe at one point he was like an innovative, outside the box offense, but I don't see that now. Like, I don't watch Tampa and how they play football and go, oh, that's like Kyle Shanahan's offense, or that's what Andy Reid does. Like, Sean Payton. Like, I look at those guys and I'm like, wow, those are some innovative offenses. Like, that's cool what they're doing. And even if I think it's like too gadget oriented, like Sean Payton, or you're like Andy Reid, chill out with some of the pre-snap stuff. Even if you think that, like, I at least see the unique stamp they put on it. I think Tampa plays a basic offense, and maybe like 10 years ago that was innovative and he was a cutting edge offensive mind. I don't think he is anymore. And I think the whole Bruce Arians versus Tom Brady thing is he might be worried about his own job security a little bit. Like, what they sold to the fan base was, we're going to get rid of Jameis Winston. We're going to get rid of the bad picks. We have all this talent, and now we're going to be a contender. And they're definitely better than they were last year. They were 7-9, I think, last year. So they're definitely better, but I don't think they're as much better as people thought. And I wonder if Bruce Arians has a little, self-preservation going on there, where he's like, I'm going to make sure that people know it's Tom's fault and not my fault, which is a dangerous line to dance on with the franchise quarterback. But that's what I think he's doing.
Yeah, well, it struck me because I saw that. I think the quote was like basically how you mentioned it, like last night. The quote based on the interceptions was something along the lines of like, that I think it was Tom misreading the coverage. Those weren't coverages we saw in practice all week. Isn't that coaching? Yeah. Like, these aren't the coverages we saw in practice last week. They showed us something different. Aren't you supposed to coach out of the coverages or scheme into the new coverages?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. You should let the players know what you can expect to see. I mean, if they make game adjustments, then the quarterback has to play off of that. But yeah, I mean, that is kind of shining a light on himself. That's a good point.
Well, I don't know, but anyway, I just thought it was, to your point. It's like, I don't know how much better the Bucs are this year than last year. I'm sure they have a better record at this point than they did last year. But to that point, I also didn't buy into the expectations that high. I mean, especially I think if you were outside of New England, getting Tom Brady to your team might seem like a big deal. But to your point, last year, I don't think Tom Brady was a top 50% quarterback in the league, or at least a top 10 quarterback in the league, even on New England with worse weapons. So it didn't really strike me as a plug and play. This is the missing piece. We're going to the Super Bowl. I don't know. I think they're right where I expected them to be, similar to like you said.
So same. Like, I didn't expect them to be a contender. I thought Brady was a little better last year. I think I was doing my quarterback rankings, kind of month by month last year. It was like an organic, not like a planned thing, but like an organic thing that would come up. I think I had him last year behind. I mean, the way Lamar Jackson was playing, I had Lamar ahead of him. Lamar's not had a good year. Mahomes is a no-brainer. Rodgers. I think I had Dak up there and Watson. And Watson's been awesome in a couple of games against the Pats. And Russell Wilson. So I think I had him only after those guys. Now after another year, has like Kyler Murray passed him by. Probably.
Josh Allen, maybe.
Yeah, that's not a bad one. I never would have thought that before the year, but that's not a bad one. Roethlisberger has come back and had a good year. You know, if I take Roethlisberger over Brady, I'm not actually sure about that. But,
right.
you know, I think Brady's, like I said, somewhere in that 8 to 12 range. Like,
Yeah.
you know, on a better week, I'd probably argue him closer to 8. On a worse week, I'd probably argue closer to 12. But, no, I mean, I think if you thought they were like a true Super Bowl contender, I think you were overrated. Yeah. I'm not saying you. I mean, like,
I understand.
You know, the generic you who felt that way, I think they would have been overrated.
Well, even some of the other signings, like, all right, we got Brady. We also got Rob Gronkowski. We're bringing in Leonard Fournette.
Or like,
and believe it or not,
or like
AB is coming to town.
Even the guys
like, what are we doing?
Like, it's like Ndamukong Suh and Shaq Barrett, like all those Pierre Paul, like all those guys were already there. Like they were already there. They didn't really add anybody. So I mean, I think Tom brought in. You know, veterans want to play with him. I mean, I think that's been proven, especially veterans on like short money deals. They want to come in and try to win, and they want to follow Brady around.
Right.
So I think Tampa will keep getting guys like that. I'd be curious to see if they can land a big free agent this year. If they have money, I don't really even know what they have for cap space, but I'd be curious to see if they could do that.
Yes, veterans love to play with him. There's not a single rookie that would ever want to play with Tom Brady again.
I sure wouldn't. And I've been offered, and I said no. I sure wouldn't.
They have young receivers there, right? Who's the kid this year? Tyler Johnson from Minnesota, who looked pretty good. And Brady's like, screw that guy. Let's bring Antonio Brown in and throw it to him 13 times a game. So, I mean, I don't know why you would want to play with that if you're a rookie. You know, it probably sounds great when you're drafted to play with him, and then you actually play next to him, and you're like, oh, this sucks. Yeah.
I mean, even like the established guys like Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, I'm sure they weren't thrilled about feeling the need to bring in Antonio Brown. It's like, bro, we're Pro Bowl receivers. We got this.
We're pretty good.
Yeah.
Like Scotty Miller have been pretty good.
Scotty Miller
I'm not
too,
saying he's great, but like he's been fine as a third receiver. So I don't think they needed to bring him in at all.
Yeah. If that's one thing about Tom Brady's consistency, he will find a mid-size white slot receiver wherever he goes and use him to his fullest. Ride it till the wheels fall off.
That's true. He's got a type. The man has a type. Yeah.
He certainly does.
Yeah. It's Brazilian models for a wife and small white receivers.
Mid-level white guys in the middle of the formation. Sign me up.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
Jones, transitioning to the Hoop team, another team in Boston that didn't have the best weekend. My first question is actually, so we lost Hayward. Do you think that Gordon Hayward is got the most lukewarm reception out of any, either big signing or marquee Boston athlete ever? And what I mean by that is that if you ask anyone on the street, I feel like no one would say that they hated him, but definitely no one would say that they loved him.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. So he wasn't like a Carl Crawford or like a Sandoval where people were like, oh, he sucks. He was kind of more in between. I mean, I always found him to be pretty polarizing, which is it. Like in terms of talking to Celtics fans on the radio, there were a lot of Hayward defenders, and there were a lot of people who were just like, he sucks. And so I found him to be polarizing. I don't know. I mean, I think you're seeing a little bit of that response now too. Like fans are upset with Ainge. I don't really think many people are upset that he's gone. Like, so that speaks to what you're talking about. People are like, oh, whatever, Gordon Hayward, I don't care that he's gone. They just should have got something for him, right?
Right.
So maybe that speaks to what you're talking about. I've always kind of found him to be polarizing, and I like to hone in on those guys. Like that Marcus Smart to me is very polarizing. Jackie Bradley, very polarizing. Like that's why we spend a lot of time talking about those guys more so than other shows, because I have found that the fan base is like pretty 50-50 on them, which to me is insane on those two specifically. But I think we've spent a lot of time talking Hayward. Horford is kind of the same way. Like I think Horford and Hayward were kind of similar in terms of like there were people who blindly just were like, this guy's great, you don't get it. And then there were a lot of people who were like, he's overpaid and he sucks. Like I think Hayward was kind of in that middle ground, which is a good place to be for talk radio.
I think it's funny because I was listening to you guys last night, and the most damning thing that you could say about him is that there's like no memorable Gordon Hayward moments.
I know
although you guys sold him a little short because
the injury.
Exactly.
The injury, he kills the Timberwolves when he plays them, and you guys left out one thing. He did have a game winner against the Kings on the road. It wasn't a buzzer beater, but he hit it with like a couple seconds to go.
Oh,
So I don't know. Those
Okay.
those are 3 wins that we might have to chalk up as L's this year.
That's a
I
good
don't know how we're
point.
going to beat the Kings
Maybe
without him.
without Gordon Hayward. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, how are you going to beat the Kings without him? So that actually sounds kind of familiar now that you brought it up. But no, last night I did say, I was like, I don't think he ever hit a game winner. So that's not accurate. It wasn't a buzzer beater, but
It's okay.
I don't think there's a lot of signature moments with him. And
No.
all-star max players, there should be signature moments, like there should be, and there just wasn't with him. Like, I mean, the thing he'll be remembered for, and this is not his fault, is
Sure.
that injury.
Yep.
But there are very
Yes.
very few moments over the years that you remember with him. Like, you when he had his best games, you're kind of like,
Yeah.
you know, he had some nice passes and, like, I don't know, a couple of turnaround jumpers, and he got the free throw line, and he knocked down a 3, and he had a drive or 2. But, like, even his best games, you look up and you go like, oh, that's a quiet 25 with like 6 assists and 8 rebounds. You know, like, he never really grabbed your attention because I don't think he's that good.
Yeah.
You know?
Great hair, but certainly doesn't stuff the stats in other ways.
Tremendous hair. There's no
Tremendous
doubt about
hair.
it.
Even had the audacity to pull out the facial hair in the bubble. Just an overall interesting looking guy.
Yep.
But the injury is interesting too
he had like a
because
mustache going, right?
he certainly did.
What do you think of guys that gel their hair to play in a game?
Of competitive men's basketball?
I mean, I don't know. I don't know if you can tell I'm not the kind of person that spends a ton of time on my look, so it's not really for me. I guess I don't really judge it too much, but it's not really for me. A very, very few and far. It's got to be like a nice dinner the wife and I are going out to for me to even think about considering putting product in my hair. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I think it's interesting. I mean, the other thing to keep in mind is the injury, literally potentially career-ending, career-altering injury, happened on game 1. What, like minute 1 in like 5 minutes into the first quarter? So
like,
what kind of is
4 or 5 minutes into that first
yeah,
quarter.
literally. And what's kind of frustrating is it's like we really don't have the ability to say, okay, what did he look like before and after the injury? Because we don't have a before the injury. You know what I mean? If this happened like year 2 and he came off a year averaging like you said, like 25, 7, and 8 or something, a pretty good season, at least then we can say, okay, it's the the injury really set this guy back. We don't know. We really don't know, which is kind of one of the crazier parts. And then it doesn't help either.
No, and
he gets hurt this summer too.
He was a good player in Utah. He's a good player in Utah.
He was a borderline max player in Utah.
And he got all the touches, and the offense ran through him, and like that was never going to happen here. And
yeah, that's true.
I would argue in some ways the injury was not a bad thing for the Celtics. Like, it's a bad thing for him, and it's a horrific injury when it happened, but Tatum and Brown grew up a lot quicker with that injury. So
big time.
And then, by the time he came back and he was healthy, they had established themselves, and he was behind them in fact, like at least behind Tatum. That's the way it was.
Yep, I'm okay with that. Yeah, I'm okay with a nice nucleus of Tatum, JB. I love Marcus Smart, and I do like the veteran presence of Kemba Walker. It was just such a difference. Maybe not on court, but just the leadership and kind of everything else from going from Kyrie to Kemba, to me, I thought made a big difference. And granted, they ended up almost in the same place, as far as moving in, as far as advancing the playoffs. But I don't know. I just thought that was a great move for them. And I'm excited more than maybe any other, with all the crazy NBA storylines nationally next year. I'm very excited to see the Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, what they take for a next step, especially Tatum, seeing as how he got paid, kind of how he reacts to that. So,
yeah, I mean, it should like officially be Tatum's team next year. Like this year was kind of like Kemba's team. It should be Tatum's team next year. I mean, just circling back to Kemba, the knee stuff scares the crap out of me. Yeah, and I mean, that's another guy they shopped this offseason. Like, that's weird. Horford left for nothing. Kyrie left for nothing. Now Hayward is left, we think, for nothing. I mean, I guess Danny can still technically work out a sign to trade. Like, the Kemba thing is like, is that going to be another guy who they brought in and they were ready to build around, and then a year later they're like, yeah, no, we're good. And
how old is Kemba?
You just see it coming. He had lots of knee issues in Charlotte, or at least maintenance surgeries and things like that. There was a pretty extensive medical history with knees in Charlotte, so they should have known that.
How old is Kemba? Is he 30?
I want to say he's definitely in his 30s. I want to say
okay.
I want to say he's even older. I can check for you.
I'm trying to think. I'm actually, because I'm thinking back to like those UConn days. That seems like a long time ago. If he was like 18
Yeah,
at the
I want to say
time.
he's like 31. I want to say he's like 31, 32, but I'll pull it up for you.
Look at that. I know we gave our research department the night off for the holiday. That's our fault.
He is. I'm sorry. He will be. He's 31 in May, so he's only 30. He's 30.
Okay.
Yeah, that's tough on a guy like, his size who needs the explosion to separate and, create an open shot for himself. Because I'm guessing like in person, he's probably like 5'10", even though he's listed at 6 feet.
He's got to be. He's so tiny. Yeah.
Yeah, tiny.
So I mean, you saw it with Isaiah. Like I'm not saying Kemba's going to fall off as precipitously as Isaiah did, but like you lose the explosion. That's what your whole game's built on. Because you're not big, you're not physical. It's all about quickness. Getting that shot off of a bigger player is all about quickness. Getting into the lane is all about quickness, and losing that is going to be a real problem for him whenever that happens.
Jones, I know you.
Any small guard.
Yeah. It's going to be a tangible thing that we'll be able to see and monitor.
Well, we do have a very young point guard on the bench in Jeff Teague to fill in if Kemba needs to take some time off, which is a godsend.
True.
Fingers crossed. I think he's like 21, 22. I don't have it right in front of me.
Yeah. He's enough.
How old is Jeff Teague? Like 37?
He is 30. He's 32. That I know.
Oh, okay.
He's 32.
That's actually not that bad. I thought he was older.
No.
He's at least still like pretty athletic for a 32-year-old.
Yeah, no, he's a solid. I thought that was a solid pickup. It's nice to have a solid. I mean, Kemba's already a solid veteran, but a more veteran to back him up as well.
I think Teague and Thompson were both good signings. Like those are good, decent signings. But that's all they are. They're just bench signings. Maybe Thompson starts, but like those are those are rotational guys. Is what I mean. Those aren't difference makers. Those are rotational guys.
Yes, would agree.
Speaking of Tristan Thompson, I'm very much looking forward to the potential Kardashian drama. You as a, I heard you say last night, which I didn't know, that you're a Keeping Up with the Kardashians fan. Is that true?
Yeah, I've watched many seasons. My wife first started dragging me in, kicking and screaming, and now I like it.
How it always starts. Yep.
Yeah.
What bars in Boston do you think the Kardashians will be hitting up? If there wasn't a pandemic, you think it's Whiskey's?
They're not going to go out to Boston. You think the Kardashians are going to fly in Boston? None.
Yeah.
Zero.
Halftime pizza for sure.
If you find out, you do have my email address, so please let me know.
Okay.
You'll be the first to know.
That's not. I don't think so. I mean, maybe like the Seaport, like maybe like the Brand or something like that. Maybe, probably not. Though. I don't think they're going out.
Something on the water.
I don't know. I could see Kylie at West End Johnny's for sure.
Yeah, so I think Sully's tap. I could see Kylie at Sully's. Yeah.
Maybe run into Kendall at like, I don't know. I'm sure she's a simple girl. Maybe some halftime pizza gets it done.
Yep, yes. I can see that. 32 ounce beer at halftime. Yeah, I can see that.
Yes, please.
Yeah, that sounds great. If you guys see her, let me know.
Who is Tristan Thompson dating Khloe Kardashian still? Again?
Yeah, so I mean, I think they're dating. They have a kid together. I think they're still together and dating. I think I got to be honest. I don't 100% know, but I think they're still a thing. Yeah.
Because they were together and then they were cheating. He cheated on her, right?
Yeah, he cheated on her with Jordan Woods. Big, lots of drama.
Yes.
Jordan Woods, I forget who she's friends with. I want to say like Kylie and Kendall. She's like one of their friends.
Yep.
She's young.
I think you say Christian Wood.
Big scandal. But yeah, she's looked the other way on that. She's still with them for some reason. I don't get it. And Khloe rather is my thing. Like if you ever watched the show, outside of the Lord Disick,
great answer, Jones. Yeah. Scott Disick is. I'm a big fan. He's the only one that's kept me somewhat interested in what's going on there. And then Khloe always has been.
He's hilarious.
He's great.
His life is in a little bit of shambles right now, but he's a very funny guy, and he is a highlight of the show. Khloe, yeah.
Khloe recently got a new face, though, didn't she? Like quite literally.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Kardashians every 4 or 5 years they all get their
fair. This one just hit a little different though. It looked like a legit different person, which I didn't know was on the table as far as life changes you can make. Just get a new face.
Yeah, when you have Kardashian money, there's no limits to what can be done. I think.
Yeah,
I think
dude, What's with all the Kim slander?
We haven't mentioned Kim once.
You ever watch the show? She's terrible.
Yeah, she's not great.
So here's
she's just a wet blanket, and she's not funny, and she's just the worst.
Yeah.
Okay, so I see the approach. So from that perspective, I can see it. I've heard from I've read from other celebrities that apparently she's like a super nice person, and she's done like some of the charitable work, like not charitable work, but she helped helped like either wrongly or excessively incarcerated people getting out of jail.
Yep. Yep. She met right with our outgoing president. Yeah.
Yeah, whatever.
Right?
Yes, I'm not a big fan of Kim. But I did want to make a point. So going back to Chloe, I just thought of this.
She might be nice and charitable and all that, but she's on the show. She's just a bore. She's just very boring.
We're talking strictly from an entertainment perspective, Sophie. Yeah, if you've kept up with the Kardashians like us, you would be able to hold your own in this conversation. Yeah, did you keep up a little bit more? Yeah, no shit. Didn't Chloe used to date James Harden?
Yeah, well, again, date I would use loosely, but yeah, I think they were a thing. Yeah,
have relations with James Harden. I wonder if that would have been an interesting dynamic if they brought James Harden in and Tristan Thompson in and had some sort of. I'm sure E would love it, but I didn't think of it till just now. Maybe that's why they're not bringing in James Harden.
What if Harden's in the division? Harden could go to the Nets or the Sixers, so you could go to either of them. Maybe there's a little intrigue there.
Ooh,
I mean, Jesus, the storylines write themselves for TNT and for Keeping Up with the Kardashians.
That'll bring a new wrinkle to the storied Brooklyn Nets Celtics rivalry.
Yes, no doubt.
Yes.
I mean, hey, we
one Eastern Conference Final and then many regular season matchups. Yes.
I think people often forget that. What's his name? Who's the former Celtics great that Kim Kardashian was engaged to?
Chris Humphries.
Chris Humphries. So this is they're trying it again. They're bringing back another Kardashian Celtics relationship, even though he wasn't on the Celtics during that time, was he? Was he on the Nets? I'm pretty sure. Ironically,
no, he was. After they had already split by the time he got here, their marriage, their 41-day marriage or whatever it was already over. Yeah. But maybe Ainge loves the
something's to it. It's officially a trend. I mean, this is the second time he's trying to rekindle this goddamn family into the Garden.
Yeah. Danny Ainge, devout Mormon, also huge Keeping Up with the Kardashians fan.
Huge Ray J fan.
Whoops. he whoops Chipotle, and he sits around and watches Keeping Up with the Kardashians. That makes sense.
He also floats rumors about how he got close to certain transactions.
Yeah.
I don't know if you noticed that trend.
Yeah. I've noticed it. Yep.
Very close to a number of phenomenal transactions.
He ended up doing nothing, but he was very close to doing many things on draft.
Oh yes, he's the GOAT in that regards.
I take that approach to my personal life.
Quick question.
Smart.
What do you think is gonna happen with James Harden? Do you think at this point the Rockets are gonna stay put? Because it's kind of quiet down a little bit recently. Do you think either of those guys are moving? No,
I think they're definitely moving. I don't know about Westbrook might be harder to move, but I think they both move. It's a new GM. It's a new GM, and the owner wants everybody out of there. The owner wants to, from what I've read, Tillman Fertitta lost a lot of money in the pandemic. He's in restaurants, he's in casinos, hotels, like he's in the hospitality industry. And part of the reason those guys, he doesn't want to spend any money this offseason to bring anybody new in or pay guys on the roster, which pissed off Harden and Westbrook, and that's why they want out. That might have been why Corey wanted out. That might have been why Tony wanted out. So I think the Rockets will trade for sure James Harden. I don't think you want to invite an even moodier, like he's already pretty moody, and even moodier James Harden back when he doesn't want to be there into like your camp in December. I don't think you want to do that. I think he'll get dealt, and if I had to pick, I think he's going to go to the Nets. I think he'll go to Kyrie and Durant. That's what I think.
That's wild. That's just so crazy. And I feel like that story just came out of nowhere. Like it started like Harden wants to move. And then like the next day it was Harden wants to go to the Nets. And then it was like, this really might happen. Like they really might go to the Nets, which I think would just be so crazy.
Well, and like, I don't know about you guys, but like no Celtics fans wanted him. Like we were taking calls.
I don't want
hey, Harden's
hell no.
Hey, Westbrook's available. Do you guys want him? No. Like people
I didn't want him. No.
Which is insane. You don't want him?
I don't. Not really.
Yeah, this is a good next topic. Go ahead, Jones.
Please.
He's
You want him hardcore?
He's awesome. He's a 3-time scoring champion consecutively. He's been an MVP. He's been an MVP runner-up 3 times. He did his 3rd MVP last year. He's an All-NBA player. You have one of those. You should want to get another one of those.
No, I don't know. I don't really.
This is pretty much like one of your callers calling.
I felt like this with Kyrie, and then that did me dirty. And then Harden, Harden's better. Harden's better.
I agree. I was wrong about Kyrie too. But just because Kyrie burned you, you don't want any more talented players.
Well, the other thing is, what's the package for Harden? What do we give up for Harden? What do we give up for Harden?
Jaylen would have to go.
No way. No way. Have you seen Jaylen modeling those New City jerseys? I'm not losing that guy. He's ready to kill.
I did.
So you lose Jaylen.
I did see that.
I mean, it wouldn't be straight up. It'd be what? Jaylen? Do you think it's just Jaylen and picks? No other players? Do you think Marcus Smart would have to go too?
No, unless they have some kind of trade exception, like from Hayward, it would have to be more. It would have to be more salary.
Right.
It'd probably have to be like Jaylen. It'd probably have to be Jaylen and Smart, which I'd be fine with. But it'd probably have to be something like that. You don't like that?
I mean, if we want to have the scoring champ, great. But I don't know. I just don't see it working in the playoffs. And again, I don't hate James Harden. I just think James Harden is perfect for what the Rockets want to do, which is score a lot of points, win some regular season games, play on TNT. And then whatever happens in the playoffs happens.
They've been to the same amount of. Harden's been to 2 Western Conference Finals. Like it's not like he's been as close to the NBA Finals as the Celtics have been.
So that's my
point. Then he shot
like
0 for 30 from 3 and they lost.
He was bad. Jaylen was pretty bad in that game.
But if Chris Paul didn't get hurt, they would have won the championship, is what I hear other people say too. But
I think that take is so ridiculous. That team was not beating the Warriors.
The Paul thing?
Yeah. In 2018, I don't care that. Like he missed Game 7. I can't remember if it was in Houston. I think it was in Houston against the Warriors, and everyone was like,
"They got smoked."
Well, if we had Chris Paul, the things probably would have gone differently. That's kind of like the Kendrick Perkins thing. I'm not
really a Chris Paul guy. I wouldn't take it that far. I'm sorry. I'm not a Chris Paul guy, so I wouldn't take it that far. But I just wouldn't say Harden's been a disaster in the playoffs. Like he's gone on some playoff runs. He hasn't won a championship, but Garnett had one before he got here. Neither did Ray Allen or Paul Pierce. Like, sometimes you need a little help around you, and he might need a little more help around.
Here's my thing. I don't think that we would go any further with Harden than we would without him. So I'd rather just lose with the guys that I like than the guys that I personally don't like. Like, I'll be honest, I just personally don't like watching his style of play. And like, I'm sure I'm going to hate watching that guy just not give a fuck on defense pretty much all game long.
Aren't you going to hate him with Kyrie and Durant more? Like, what if they win? Like, those 3 could win.
Oh, that's a good point, actually. That would suck.
But it's like, whatever. Like, yeah, you had Kyrie and Durant, so maybe you should win.
They could also be a huge disaster. Like, I that would be a very wide range of outcomes with Harden and Durant.
Yeah,
and Kyrie.
I'm very excited.
Not saying definitively they will be a success. I don't know that, but they would have enough talent to win those 3.
I'm curious to see what the narrative on Steve, if Harden goes to the Nets and they keep those core 3. I think it's with those players, I think it's almost impossible to at least not be, I don't know, like a top 4 seed or something in the East. I don't know, unless they totally implode and can't get along. I'm curious to see what the narrative on Steve Nash is, because I think you're going to see one of 2 things. It's going to be anyone can coach this team. They have these 3, it doesn't matter. Or Steve Nash just coached James Harden, Kevin Durant, and Kyrie Irving, and no one killed themselves, and they made it to the finals, and he's the greatest coach of all time. I'm curious to see how it goes, because Steve Kerr gets that same thing. I think anyone can coach the Warriors.
He's not.
No, they can't.
Yeah, he's not going to get much credit. I don't think he's going to. It's going to be maybe he'll get some credit for managing personality.
That's what I mean. That's going to be the job. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I think it would be. I don't think he'll be looked at as a great coach. He'll be looked at as Ty Lue. He'll be looked at like that.
Ooh, that's never good luck. Yeah.
Jones, what's your updated take on Jaylen Brown and Marcus Smart now that we're a few years in?
The guys you just said you trade for James Harden.
Yes.
Well, what do you mean? My update, like on how I feel about them or their relationship with each other?
How you feel about them separately, individually?
Oh, so here's how I feel about Jaylen. I feel vindicated in some ways how I felt on draft night and wrong in others. Like, he's a way, way, way better player than I gave him credit for when they drafted him. I hated that pick when they made him.
So
and I was right. I was there at the Garden booing Wick along with everybody else when they made that pick. And he's way better than I thought. I think he is an all-star. I don't think he's an all-NBA caliber player, but I think he has he's the guy who's going to make some all-star teams, and I did not think he would do that when they drafted him.
Mm-hmm.
So I was wrong about that. But what I was mostly annoyed about on draft night were two things. I mean, number one, I wanted to draft Jamal Murray instead. And I think Murray and Brown are pretty similar. I mean, Murray's coming off an awesome postseason. Brown's winning. Murray's a guard, so maybe there's a little bit of value with the position Brown plays. But I probably still would prefer Jamal Murray over Brown, but it's close. What I really wanted was for them to trade for Jimmy Butler. Like years ago, that was the rumor that night. I wanted them to trade for Butler, and they still should have done that. So, again, I feel vindicated on how I felt that night, but I was way wrong about how good of a player Brown could be. So that's a mixed bag. I mean, Smart, I still feel 100% the same. Like he's fine. There's a useful skill set there. It's just people go nuts with it, and it's annoying. And that's my stance on Smart. I don't really dislike Marcus Smart. I dislike what everybody has turned Marcus Smart into, which is just like this big fake thing. That's all.
Fair take.
I feel personally attacked, but yeah, I agree.
So you're a Marcus Smart guy. I've gathered this as we've gone along. So why are you Marcus Smart?
I mean, you can ask Soapy. I used to be a big opposite end of Marcus Smart. I used to hate him every time he had the ball in his hands on offense. And then, I don't know. He just started making some gritty plays, and he drew charges on James Harden, and I thought he was
winning plays.
I thought he was Dennis Johnson all of a sudden. I don't know what else to say. I just think I think he was a big to use a cliche term in sports. I think he was a big X factor in the bubble. I think he helped keep him together. He's a good veteran personality on the floor, stuff like that. But I don't know. I just like him. He's one of those players where
except when he was forcing out his teammate. Causing an all-out brawl after game 2 or whatever it was.
That doesn't count.
Let's not get caught up in the details.
He's just one of those players I like. I mean, that just goes back to fandom. I think every fan of a team has a player who, outside of being local, no one would give a shit. I just like him. Now that I think about it, I mean,
you're allowed to like him.
Yeah, and if they traded JB and Smart for Harden tomorrow, I'd probably get over it, especially if he's dropping 35 points a game. But I don't know. It hurt.
Yeah. Right, if he was a scoring leader. Like, I said this a bunch about Harden and Tatum, and not to get away from Smart, but, the run that Tatum went on last year, remember February when he was scoring, 30 a game? And people were like, yeah, woo! Harden's done that every year for 3 years.
Right.
He scored 30-plus a game for 3 years straight. Tatum did it for a month, and people were like, he's the truth. He's Mike Jordan 2.0. He did it for 1 month. A short month. February's not even a long month. He did it for 1 month. And Harden's done that for years, literally years.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, at this point, you don't think there's any? Do you think there's a chance that Harden to Boston still happens, or no? Is that pretty much dead?
No. Okay. I honestly, I never thought it was realistic that the Celtics would do it. I just wanted them to do it, and I think they should do it. You should let him go to your division if that's where he ends up going. I think
that's a very good point.
But I don't think it was ever a realistic consideration by Boston, because Danny doesn't realistically consider doing anything apparently. So no, I didn't really. He can't even do a sign and trade in his back pocket. So no, he's not going to trade for James Harden. Of course not.
Yeah, well said.
Jones, this is my last question for you, and we'll get you out of here. Actually, kind of a two-parter. So, I saw Jimmy Stewart floating today that Giannis could be in play for the Celtics. So I want your thoughts on that. You're familiar, if you saw the tweet at all or anything. And then 2, I heard you talking last night about how terrible the current LA Rams jerseys are, which I agree with. They look like diapers.
Yeah.
They're just like a shitty tint of gray.
Dirty diapers. Yep.
What are your so the second part is, what are your favorite jerseys across all 4 major sports?
Ooh. Okay, let me think. Favorite jerseys in professional sports. I get every sport.
Every sport you can think of.
Okay.
Yeah, if you got a cricket jersey that's on your mind that you've been wanting to get that takeout,
fire.
That's fine too.
The Boston
I will
Cayman
tell you
City
right off the
jerseys.
bat. You know what I love. What I love in college football. I know what I love in college football. When Penn State, and I don't even like Penn State, but when Penn State goes all white, like they go the full white uniform and the white helmet with just the blue stripe.
Yeah,
I like that from college football.
And they white out the crowd too.
Yeah,
they do that sometimes too.
It's that I like. I mean, I don't know. In the NHL, man, I think a lot of people like the Blackhawks. Local Blackhawks. I like what they have going on.
Classic. Made
I think
famous
the
by
Canucks.
Chevy Chase.
I think the Canucks, because they
Christmas
remind me
Vacation.
of the Hartford Whalers colors.
Those are kind of dope. Those are okay. They're also called sweaters, by the way, in the NHL, Soapy.
There we go.
Nice.
That's the Canucks right there. That's the Canucks. I was at a game. My wife and I were in Vancouver a few years ago. We saw Canucks and Wild. I wanted to
sweet.
in. So, yeah.
Wild's actually pretty dope too. Yeah, the NHL low-key has some really dope logos and jerseys and stuff like that.
NHL has great logos. I agree.
They really do.
I don't like the Bruins one, but I like a lot of their like reverse retro jerseys they're doing. All right, so anyway, hang on. So the Blackhawks I like. What do I like in the NBA or NFL even? Well, I mean, if I'm going classic, I do like those Nuggets throwbacks. I like the Denver throwbacks.
The blue ones, like the city, like the different colors. Yeah, those are dope.
Yeah,
those are nice.
Like now we're going back a ways, but I like those.
Oh,
I've always kind of liked the Phoenix Suns. I've always kind of liked that logo.
Big one.
Baseball. What's a good baseball logo? I've always kind of liked the Blue Jays.
Yep, great one.
Dodgers is a clean logo. I like the Dodgers uniform.
Yeah.
Dodgers have a good. I don't like the Dodgers, but I like their uniform and logo. And then
The cursive diagonal.
Say it again.
The diagonal going, the cursive going diagonal.
Yeah.
I think that's a good look.
Yeah.
How do you feel about?
Whites are good.
Yeah. How do you feel about this? We've talked about this before.
Like Blue Jays, I would like. Oh, say it.
I was going to say, we talked about this before, some other people. What are your thoughts on the Cincinnati Reds used to have like the gray, almost like a tank top, and then like the black or red like t-shirts like under it, like during like the Griffey days?
Oh, like what Griffey wore?
Yeah.
Not a fan.
Oh, geez.
Really?
Not a fan.
A couple of big fans.
But I like how you guys both like them.
Please, go ahead. Yeah.
Marcus Smart was my first strike. Now the Reds jerseys, I didn't even know. But no, I like the baseball. Like, the Blue Jays, they don't wear their grays on the road, or at least I think they do now, but they used to wear like that light blue, or like the Royals used to wear that. Yeah. Or even like the Phillies or the Cardinals way back when they would wear
like the Ozzie Smith Cardinals. Those were good jerseys. Those were sick.
So I like that for like a road thing. But I like the Dodgers homes are real nice. And then football, I don't really have one that I really like.
Dude, you got to go powder blue Chargers.
That's a good one. I feel like there's just so many teams in the NFL. I'm trying to think.
I feel like football just changes them too much.
Oh, yeah, all the time. And then by the time it takes too long, now they're on to throwbacks. So it's like it's an ongoing like cycle.
I got to be honest. You know what? You know who I always liked, even as a kid? And I know they're a terrible team. I always kind of like the Bengals. I always kind of like those uniforms. Stripes,
unique,
orange and black.
Yeah.
I always kind of like that.
I like I think they've used them a couple times on Thursday Night Color Rush, but it's like just the white helmet with like the black stripes, and they wear all white with like black stripes. Those are really nice. I think they call them them like the White Tiger uniforms or something. They're clean.
Sounds nice, but
that's the thing about like those Thursday night Color Rush. They're either like hot trash or like fire. There's really no in between. Like you're either like the Jags mustard yellow or
very much in between. And now the Patriots just wear their Color Rush jerseys. They stink.
And I don't like those. Yeah, good point. Yeah. I don't like those much at all.
So what was your first question? It was a two-parter. The uniform question. Yes. What was the first question?
Yeah. What about this Giannis theory to Boston floated out by Jace too?
This year?
So I had heard
today.
I had read. I saw Jay Stu's tweets. I had read previously. I want to say it was like Vincent Goodwill or somebody at Yahoo had written a while ago that if he leaves Milwaukee, Giannis is considering Miami and Toronto. And the big factor in Toronto is the Greek population, which apparently Jimmy's take is that there's a pretty sizable population here in Boston. I don't know if there is or there isn't. That's part of his take. I think the Giannis stuff ties in with the Bam extension today. Bam Adebayo's got a big extension from Miami, and no one really understands why they would do that instead of making a run at Giannis next year and eat into their cap space now. I kind of think Giannis is going to stay. I kind of think the reason that Miami signed Bam is they know Giannis is going to stay in Milwaukee. That's like a working theory that I have, and I wonder if that's what's going on, because I think Riley would have waited otherwise. I think Riley would have waited and taken a swing.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Because I mean, what's Jimmy Butler's contract? Is he locked in for another few years at least? A couple of years?
Yeah, they would have to. I mean, the free up cap space, they have to get out of Jimmy Butler to bring in Giannis next year. Yeah.
Oh, true. Because besides that, I mean, who else do you need to pay? Tyler Hero in like 4 years? Duncan, like there's really no other big names they need to. So just give it all to Bam, which I like Bam, but I think most fans would say Giannis over Bam. But I don't know. I think you're right. So I mean, I think they're in a position to have a good season. The Bucks, if they win a championship, I don't see why you would want to leave.
No, I'm saying like he might sign like soon, like not. I think. He
has to sign really? Like going into the year. Oh, that's true. I keep thinking he's a free agent right now. Yeah, you're right.
Well, to get the Supermax, he would need to sign by like December, right? December 21st or something like that. Right. So I mean, he can wait. He can play out his final year and then go get paid next year. But
yeah,
I think he might sign. Like I think that might the reason the Heat move forward is because they know Giannis is going to stay in Milwaukee. That's the theory. That's not. I have no intel on that. That's just a guess. But I don't get why else Miami would sign him.
Because I thought this was kind of silly, but the other thing was. I've heard other people saying on Twitter and stuff about how he might be soured by how they handled the Bogdanovic. I don't know what it was, sign and then the mistrade. He's a good player. I don't think that would have been the make or break for Giannis to say, if you get this guy, I'm in. Like lock me up.
I kind of understand that though. Not like Bogdanovic is like the make or break, but like you look at the front office and you're like, wait, you can't even.
Yes, I know what you mean. It's not a good looking fumble. Yeah.
Right. I think it's more like that. It's like we've got him, we're bringing him in, and then they screwed it up. And like Giannis kind of takes a step back and goes, "What's going on here?" But I don't know. I mean, I would understand being weirded out by that. I just wonder if he's staying.
It's similar.
I'll probably be wrong about that. I'm wrong about everything, but that's what I'm wondering with Bam.
It reminds me. Do you guys remember? This was like maybe 5 or 10 years ago. Didn't that happen with the Cleveland Browns? Like they went to like trade someone and like they missed the paperwork deadline by like 24 hours or something, and they weren't able to do it. You know what I'm talking about? It was literally like a front office goof. Like they had the guy, and they literally the only reason it didn't work.
The Broncos and Elvis Somerville. The Broncos
maybe it was the Broncos.
Something with Elvis Somerville.
That's what it was. That's exactly what it was. It was the Broncos. I just assume every poor front office move is made in Cleveland, but correct. That was in Denver.
The Browns. Yeah.
If something like that happened, then I'd be like, I don't know if I trust you guys for the next 5 years to lock me into a contract if your fax machine runs out of ink or something to get the paperwork over. But yeah, so no, that'll be interesting. And I saw Ingram signed. Giannis is the only really big name left out there, right? I think as far as legit free agent. Well, AD too, technically, but.
Well, Giannis is not a free agent right now. He could sign his extent. He could sign like a supermax extension. Like
that's right. That's right.
Davis is probably the big. He's probably like the big name out there right now. Yeah. And I think he'll be back in LA.
Oh yeah. Do you think there's anything to I don't know if you saw this come out, but the Clippers have been leaking that they have something big up their sleeve for this summer. Do you think that's going to amount to anything?
I haven't seen that. No.
Oh, I saw that. Do you know what I'm talking about, Soapy? I don't know if it was like an inside leak or something.
I do. And the internet has had its fun with that tweet.
Yeah.
Because everyone's like, well, what the fuck could you possibly have?
Who's left?
Like, you lost Montrezl Harrell to the team that plays in your building.
Yeah. I don't know.
Harden or Westbrook?
I don't know. Maybe Westbrook. I can't see Harden pulling something like that or them pulling something like that.
John
for
Wall?
Harden.
Could it be John Wall? Like maybe John Wall leaves DC. Like I'm trying to think of other names that are available.
Hassan
we don't
Whiteside?
even know what type of player.
What else out there?
We don't even know what type of player Kawhi like really wants to play with because like who knows what he even thinks about Paul George right now.
I don't think he's a big fan.
Yeah, I don't think much. Yeah, I would agree.
No, I don't think they hang out too much outside of work. But anyway, speaking of work, we gotta let you get back, man. So Jones, thank you again for your time, man. Appreciate it. Before we let you go though, where's the best place for everyone to find you on social media and catch your show?
So you can listen on the SportsHub. You can get our app or just listen on a radio dial, and you can find me on Twitter at Adam Jones 98.5.
Perfect. All right, Adam Jones from 98.5. Appreciate your time, man. Good talking with you.
I will be calling in soon, by the way.
Do it. 100% do it.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll bring up something from this conversation.
If you don't mind, we'll just continue our show on your show if that's cool.
That's cool. I think there's
All right.
plenty of time. Lots of time on the night show.
All right. Thanks, buddy.